Hey everybody, got a wee anonymous Q on trans fats. So somebody is asking me if I could do a wee Q&A on trans fats and what the difference is between the likes of olive oil spread, not a trans fat, and butter has natural trans fats in it. Alright, so and is there a better option? So the first thing I would ask somebody that asked me this question would be better as in what do you mean? Do you mean for better for fat loss or do you mean better for cholesterol? Because there is a massive difference. And the reason that I would ask that is quite often when we're in the market for fat loss and dieting, we get hung up far too much on the science of random shit because we don't want to admit to ourselves that we can't actually stick to our calorie deficit. So it's very easy. I do hear this all the time. I've heard it a lot in the past. I hear it now and I'll hear it again in the future, that people will say to me, oh, I can't diet because I am intolerant to carbs. Oh, I can't diet because I have a dairy allergy. Oh, I can't drop body fat because some other pish, right? And it's not pish, right? You might actually be intolerant to carbs. That's totally cool. You might actually have a dairy allergy. That is actually totally cool as well, all right? But the problems arise when we start using these things as excuses to not lose fat, all right? So the only way we can drop body fat is to be in a calorie deficit. If your calorie deficit is 1,800 calories a day and you are eating white bread, butter, full fat cheese, that's okay, providing you come in at your calorie deficit. All right, so none of these will stop you losing fat, but like I said, we sometimes get a bit hung up on it and use it as an excuse to not stick to our diet. All right, so here's some trans fat things, right? Trans fat things are artificial fats, right? And they're made by adding hydrogen to vegetable oils to make them solid at room temperature. Now, I remember, oh, and by the way, the World Health Organization says you should just not eat trans fats, right? Just don't eat them. They're saying that there's not a particularly safe level. So like cheap baked goods, I'm never going to not eat a cheap baked goods again because it's got trans fat in it, right? Like I want to say a Greggs Yum Yum. Didn't quote me on that because they might not have trans fats in them. But that would be the kind of thing that you're speaking about, like cheap cakes and stuff, right? I love cheap cakes and I would eat them, but eating them in moderation is absolutely fine. All right. So I remember, sorry, a long time ago now, I'm speaking about 20 years ago, maybe even longer than that, I spoke to somebody that sold some shitty fat loss juice thing, right? Can't remember what it was. Wish I could remember. Can't remember what it was. Anyway, and we had a whole conversation. I won a health check from them, diet check from them, right? In a raffle or something. And I remember sitting down with him, right? And I remember him saying to me, we spoke for ages, right? But I remember him specifically saying to me, anything that's in a tub, like Lurpak spreadable, margarine, is one step away from being plastic, right? And that's actually stuck with me through my whole life. And very rarely, never through choice, will I eat butter or margarine or something that is a spreadable thing, right? I would much rather just take the hit because it's tastier and eat the actual real thing, all right? So trans fats, baked goods, deep fried foods, margarine and processed snacks, right? You'd actually be quite amazed at what trans fats are in. And I am absolutely going to eat them again, but it's about moderation, all right? They raise your LDL, which is your bad cholesterol, which is why you might have high cholesterol. They lower your HDL, which is your good cholesterol. They increase inflammation within your body, and that can be linked to insulin resistance, which leads on to type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And the World Health Organization recommends that you just avoid them completely, right? Personally, I think that's a bit extreme, and if you eat them in moderation, it's absolutely cool. There are absolutely zero health benefits to eating artificial trans fats. Zero health benefits, all right? So the next question that they asked me is butter and olive oil spread. So she said specifically that she was using olive oil spread, but she thinks that's a trans fat and she's now using butter, right? The olive oil spread is not a trans fat. It's basically a healthier, heart-wise, not fat loss-wise, healthier heart-wise, all right? So calories for both, so calories for butter, margarine, olive oil spread, actual olive oil that you pour out a jar, right, are pretty much of a muchness. They are usually around about between 100 to 120 calories per tablespoon, so much of a muchness. So if you don't have high cholesterol, right, and I've already said that they make no difference whatsoever to fat loss, eat the one that you like. Yeah? As always, it's about client preferences and client choices. So I would say eat the one that you like. I eat butter. I use olive oil for cooking. Unless I'm making an Indian and then I use ghee before anybody has a freak out, all right? It's in moderation. It's once every 4 months or something, all right? So for fat loss, it's portion size that matters. You all know that. I talk about this all the time, all right? It's not which one you choose. For satiety, for feeling satiated, all right, butter can sometimes make food tastier, therefore you may eat less. Therefore, you will eat less calories, all right? Spreadable olive oil blends like Bertolli are often lighter and they're slightly easier to portion out. So you may find that if you use that, you will use less, therefore less calories. Again, there's no difference for fat loss. It's about pretty much your choices, all right? Cholesterol and heart health, olive oil spreads will win every single time, all right? Especially those high in olive or rapeseed oil and low in trans or hydrogenated fats. Butter is fine in moderation, but if you've got high cholesterol or a family history of heart disease, olive oil-based spreads are the smarter daily option. So in summary, for heart health and high cholesterol, olive oil spreads are better. For tastiness, butter is better. For fat loss, makes zero difference. All right, bye-bye.